After wife collapsed at work, husband chose secret lover's party over me unaware. I just inherited $10 million. She worked herself to exhaustion just to keep her marriage standing. Skipped meals, sleepless nights, endless devotion. But one afternoon, her body finally gave up. She collapsed right there in the office, surrounded by papers she was too loyal to leave unfinished. The doctors called her husband again and again, and while her heart fought to keep beating, he was busy popping champagne at his mistress's birthday party, smiling, laughing, ignoring every call that could have saved what was left of his soul. "She'll survive," he told the woman in his arms, dismissing the emergency call with a smirk. "Clara always survives. She's used to pain." Those were his words, cold, selfish, unforgettable. But what he didn't know was that while he was celebrating betrayal, fate was rewriting her destiny. At that very moment, the lawyer of her late father was signing documents that would awaken a fortune, $10 million, placed solely in her name. The same woman he called a burden was about to become the one thing he could never own again, free, powerful, and untouchable. Sometimes, dear viewers, life waits until the knife is deep before it reveals the crown you were born to wear. Sometimes the collapse they laugh at becomes the rise they'll regret watching. This is not just a story of betrayal, it's a story of awakening, of quiet revenge served with grace, and of the truth that a woman's worth is never measured by how much she suffers, but by how fiercely she stands when no one stands for her. Dear viewers, welcome back. Before we begin, I have one heartfelt request. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. Because tonight, as we follow Clara's journey from hospital bed to triumph, we remind every broken heart that pain is not the ending, it's the beginning of power. The alarm exploded at 5:30 a.m. sharp, slicing through the silence like a blade. Clara Reynolds jolted upright, gasping, one hand clutching her chest before she realized it wasn't dangerous. It was just morning again. The same morning she woke up every day. Steam hissed from the kettle, toast burned in the corner, and the washing machine hummed like a tired heart. Her body moved automatically, the way soldiers move after too many battles, muscle, not thought. She flipped pancakes for her husband, Ryan Reynolds, a 36-year-old financial advisor with movie star confidence and the kind of smile that fooled everyone but her. He sat at the table scrolling through his phone, his silver watch catching the early light. His tie was perfect, his tone sharp. "You're late again, Clara," he muttered without looking up. "Clients don't like excuses. You should try it sometime." Clara forced a small smile, the kind that hides exhaustion. "I was up finishing your expense reports last night. You forgot to sign too." He shrugged, tapping his screen. "Then you should have reminded me earlier." There it was, the tone. Not loud, but slicing. Not cruel enough to call abuse, but cruel enough to bruise the heart. She turned to hide the sting, her reflection flashing briefly in the stainless kettle. Dark circles, thinning patience, the quiet ache of someone holding a marriage together with trembling fingers. The smell of burnt toast filled the air. Ryan groaned. "For God's sake, Clara, can't you handle a simple breakfast?" Her hand froze over the pan. "Sorry, I'll make another." He snatched his phone from the table, grabbed his keys and stood. The scent of his cologne filled the kitchen as he brushed past her, muttering, "You always say sorry, but nothing changes." The words lodged in her chest. Still, she followed him to the door. Habit, loyalty, love. She couldn't tell anymore. "At least eat something," she tried. Ryan paused at the doorway, half turned, his phone lighting up. A text glowed on the screen. "See you tonight, Sophie." Clara's eyes flicked toward it. He noticed. The phone flipped face down instantly. "It's work," he said. "Too fast, too defensive." She nodded, pretending to believe him, pretending not to notice that his tie was scented faintly with floral perfume that wasn't hers. He leaned in to kiss her cheek, the gesture hollow. Routine. "Don't be late for work. Try not to collapse like last week." Her smile cracked slightly. "That was low blood sugar, Ryan." "Yeah," he smirked. "Maybe eat better instead of staying up worrying about bills." And then he was gone, slamming the door, leaving only his cologne and the echo of his contempt. Clara stood still, her shoulders slumped, but her eyes stayed open, fixed on the empty door. The toaster popped again, burnt. She turned it off this time. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee mug. whispering to herself, "You can do this. Just one more day." She sipped, the bitterness grounding her. Outside, car tires rolled away, taking the last illusion of warmth with them. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a reminder from the hospital app. Routine checkup overdue. Chest pain risk flagged. She exhaled slowly, pressing her fingers against her sternum. A dull ache pulsed there, faint but real. Through the kitchen window, sunlight crept across the floor, bright but cold. She straightened her blouse, grabbed her purse, and whispered, "No more delays." Then, as she turned to leave, her eyes landed on a pink scarf hanging from the coat rack, silky, expensive, and definitely not hers. Her heart stopped. A beat of silence, a long stare. Then she whispered to herself, "That's not mine." She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at the scarf as if it had spoken. Outside, a car horn honked twice the sound of Ryan's car waiting in the driveway. It wasn't leaving yet. And for the first time, Clara felt something different beneath the exhaustion. Suspicion. She didn't know it yet, but the pink scarf was the first thread that would soon unravel everything she believed about her marriage. The air outside snapped with tension the moment Clara stepped onto the porch. Ryan's car engine growled impatiently, his hand drumming on the steering wheel. The pink scarf still hung in the hallway behind her like a silent witness. But she forced her focus forward. She wouldn't ask, not yet. "Finally," Ryan muttered, glancing at his watch. "You take longer than traffic." Clara gripped her tote, biting back a reply. "I can walk from the metro today," she said quietly. "You don't have to drop me off," he scoffed. "You? Walk? Clara, the last time you walked to work you were late and drenched. Just get in." She obeyed. The moment she sat, she noticed the faint shimmer of lip gloss on the dashboard screen. Rose pink, the same color as the scarf. Her stomach nodded. Ryan's cologne was stronger now, almost smothering. He pulled out of the driveway fast, one hand on the wheel, the other clutching his phone. "Big day today," he said. "Client breakfast. Don't text me unless it's important." She turned to him. "Then why is Sophie calling you at 6:30 inches the morning?" The car jerked slightly. "Excuse me?" His tone cut sharp. "I saw her name flash on your phone last night. Is she one of your clients too?" Ryan's jaw flexed. For a moment, silence filled the car, except for the rhythmic blink of the turn signal. "You're paranoid," he said finally. "Sophie is a colleague. She's part of the investor team. Don't make it weird." Clara looked out the window, her reflection faint against the glass. She wanted to believe him. She really did. But something about his tone, too defensive, too practiced, made her heart clench. He added, almost as if rehearsed, "She left that scarf in my car last week after the team dinner. You know how women get cold easily." Clara turned back, her voice calm. "Then why didn't you return it?" Ryan smiled without warmth. "Because you'd still find something to accuse me of. Just drop it, Clara." He parked abruptly in front of the metro station. No goodbye kiss, no glance. Just the glow of his phone lighting his face again, his thumbs moving fast across the screen. She opened the door slowly, gripping her purse tighter. The wind whipped through her hair, carrying the faint scent of roses from the scarf still resting inside the car. "Ryan," she said softly, one hand on the doorframe. "When did you stop talking to me and start messaging other people instead?" He didn't answer, didn't even look up, just said, "You're going to be late." Her throat burned, but she smiled. Not the kind of smile that hides pain, this one was sharper, colder. "Have a nice breakfast meeting then." She stepped out and closed the door gently. The car sped away, leaving her in a cloud of exhaust and questions. As she walked toward the metro, her chest tightened again. Not just from heartbreak, but from something deeper, physical. A faint pressure beneath her ribs, a warning. She paused, pressing a hand to her chest. A kind stranger behind her asked, "Are you okay, ma'am?" Clara forced a smile. "Just tired. I'll be fine." She straightened, taking a deep breath, and continued walking, each step slower than the last. When she reached the train platform, the morning sun hit her face. Her phone buzzed, another calendar reminder. "Doctor appointment missed. Reschedule immediately." Her vision blurred for a second, and she steadied herself against the rail. Her fingers shook as she typed a quick note in her phone. "Call hospital today. Then, as the train roared into the station, she caught her reflection in the glass again. Pale, weary, eyes filled with something between hope and dread. She had no idea that the same chest pain she ignored this morning would be the reason her entire world collapsed by noon. The office floor shook under the thunder of ringing phones and rushing footsteps. Clara stumbled through the hallway, clutching a stack of client reports that felt heavier with every step. Her vision pulsed edges, blurring, colors dulling. The hum of printers and chatter blended into one dizzying buzz. "Clara, we need those numbers before the meeting." Her manager, Mr. Daniels, barked from across the cubicles. He was in his early 50s, sharp suit, always sweating deadlines. "The partners are waiting upstairs." She forced a breath, nodding. "2 minutes, sir." Her voice came out thinner than she intended. Her fingers trembled as she typed, double-checking spreadsheets, fighting the spinning in her head. Sweat dampened her blouse despite the cold air conditioning. Every heartbeat pounded behind her eyes. "Don't faint. Not now." Her phone buzzed beside the keyboard. Ryan's name flashed across the screen. Relief flickered until she saw the preview. "Ryan, can't talk. At Sophie's meeting. Big night ahead." Her throat went dry. The same client meeting story. Her hands hovered over the keyboard, her heart thudding faster, louder, too loud. Mr. Daniels shouted again. "Clara, the partners are on their way." I'm done," she stammered, pressing print. The room tilted slightly, and she grabbed the edge of the desk. Her breath came shallow. One of her colleagues, Lena, noticed from the next cubicle. "Clara, you okay? You look pale." "I'm fine," she whispered, but her knees trembled. "Just dizzy." She tried to take a step forward, clutching the reports against her chest. The pages fanned out like white feathers falling to the floor. Then everything went black. A scream cut through the office. "Clara! Someone call 911! Chairs scraped. Phones dropped. Lena knelt beside her, shaking her gently. "Clara, can you hear me? Stay with me." Her breathing was shallow, erratic. The faint scent of coffee and toner filled the air as coworkers gathered around. "Her pulse is weak," Lena cried. "Hurry!" The sound of footsteps blurred into sirens. Paramedics stormed in, their radios crackling. One of them, Nurse Evan, checked her vitals quickly. Blood pressure dangerously low, possible collapse from stress or heart strain. "She's been working non-stop," Lena said, panic thick in her voice. Her husband said she's been under pressure at home too. "Let's get her to County General." "Move," Evan ordered. They lifted Clara onto the stretcher. Her eyelids fluttered open for a moment. All she could see were lights white, blinding. Her lips parted weakly. "Did someone call Ryan?" Lena hesitated. "We did." He didn't answer. "Maybe he's driving." A small tear slipped down Clara's cheek before she blacked out again. As the elevator doors closed around her, the papers from her report still lay scattered across the carpet pages, marked with her last effort to hold her world together. Inside the ambulance, the heart monitor beeped unsteadily. Evan spoke softly to the driver. "If we don't stabilize her soon, she could go into cardiac arrest." Outside the tinted window, the city blurred past glass towers, busy lives, and somewhere across town, Ryan's laughter echoed in a fancy restaurant over clinking champagne glasses. Back at the office, Lena picked up Clara's fallen phone. The screen still glowed with Ryan's message. She frowned, whispered under her breath, "Big night, huh?" and slipped the phone into her purse to return later. By the time the ambulance reached the hospital, one man's silence would speak louder than 1,000 alarms, and the price of that silence would haunt him forever. The night sky shimmered over the city, but inside the rooftop, the restaurant, the air was thick with perfume, laughter, and betrayal. Ryan Reynolds clinked his champagne glass against another. "To Sophie," he said loudly, grinning from ear to ear, "the most brilliant woman I've ever met." Applause followed. The guests, Sophie's colleagues, investors, and a few of Ryan's business friends cheered as the birthday candles flickered across her flawless face. Sophie Grant, 30, tall, blonde, and confident, smirked as she leaned closer to Ryan. "You're only saying that because I let you win at poker last night," she teased, her tone intimate enough to draw curious glances. Ryan's phone buzzed on the table. Once, twice, then again. He frowned and flipped it over. Clara. Wife. The laughter around him drowned the sound of the ringtone. Sophie noticed. Work? Ryan hesitated. Yeah, she's probably checking in. Sophie raised a perfect brow. At this hour? The phone buzzed again. This time it didn't stop. The screen lit up with an urgent hospital caller ID. County General ER. Sophie tilted her head. You gonna get that? Ryan stared at the screen for a long second, jaw tight. A swirl of thoughts crossed his mind. Clara's voice this morning. The argument, her accusing eyes. He sighed. She's probably overreacting again. Stress or something. Sophie laughed, the sound soft and mocking. You married the dramatic type, huh? He smirked, pocketing the phone. You have no idea. The waiter brought another bottle of champagne. Music thumped as Sophie pulled Ryan toward the dance floor. Forget the world tonight, she said. It's my birthday. Just us. He hesitated, glancing toward the glittering city skyline beyond the glass railing. For a split second, guilt flickered in his chest. But the lights, the music, and Sophie's hand on his arm smothered it fast. The phone buzzed one last time in his pocket. Then, silence. Across town, the ambulance screeched through red lights. Clara's pulse was weak, her oxygen low. Nurse Evans shouted, "Stay with me, ma'am. Almost there." Her fingers twitched, trying to reach for something that wasn't there. Her phone had fallen from the stretcher screen cracked, still glowing faintly. The last call made. Ryan Reynolds. No answer. Back at the party, Ryan lifted Sophie onto the small stage, where a massive cake gleamed beneath sparklers. Cameras flashed as he wrapped an arm around her waist. "Make a wish!" someone yelled. She blew out the candles, laughing. Ryan whispered something in her ear that made her blush. Then his phone buzzed once more this time, a voicemail notification. He almost ignored it, but curiosity won. He pressed play. The voice of Lena, Clara's co-worker, filled his ear, trembling. "Ryan, this is Lena from the office." Clara collapsed. "She's in the ER, please come fast." The phone nearly slipped from his hand. Sophie looked at him. "What's wrong?" He forced a grin, though his face had gone pale. "It's nothing. Just a work issue. Keep celebrating." Sophie's smile faltered slightly. "You sure?" "Positive." He took a long drink, drowning whatever conscience still flickered. "Tonight's about you." Outside, fireworks erupted over the skyline, brilliant and loud, masking the sound of the city's sirens far below. Meanwhile, in the ER, Clara's monitor flatlined for 3 long seconds before stabilizing again. Nurse Evan looked at her and whispered, "You're lucky, ma'am, but someone up there's giving you one last chance." The heart monitor beeped again, steady, fragile, alive. By the time Ryan finally checked his voicemail, the damage would already be irreversible, and the woman he ignored would soon rise in ways he could never imagine. The hospital room was silent, too silent. Only the soft hum of machines and the slow beep of the heart monitor filled the air. Clara's eyelids fluttered open to blinding, white lights and the faint sting of an IV in her arm. Her throat felt dry as dust. For a moment, she didn't know where she was or why her body felt like it had been crushed by exhaustion itself. Then it all came back in flashes. The office, the collapse, the sirens, Ryan's face, except he hadn't been there. She turned her head weakly toward the door. "Ryan?" The word cracked in her throat like a broken shell. No answer. She tried again, louder. "Ryan?" A nurse entered, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a professional calm. Her name tag read Nurse Paula. "Easy, ma'am," she said gently, adjusting Clara's foreline. "You're awake. That's good news." Clara blinked rapidly. "Where's my husband? Did he come?" Paula hesitated. A silence settled in the room, gentle but heavy. "We called him," she said carefully, "but he didn't answer." The words landed like ice in Clara's veins. Her fingers clenched the blanket. "No one came?" Paula shook her head softly. "But your friend Lena did. She waited until the doctor said you'd be okay. You're lucky she called the ambulance so fast." Clara swallowed hard. The memory of Ryan's laughter that morning cut through her like glass. The pink scarf, the message. "Sophie." Paula handed her a small envelope. "A man left this for you earlier. Said it was urgent. From your father's attorney." Clara frowned. "My father's attorney?" "Yes. Said his name was Mr. Hayden. He told me to give it to you when you woke up. Clara's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, printed neatly on thick paper, with the logo of Hayden & Co. Legal Associates. She read slowly, her lips moving silently through the lines. Dear Clara, in accordance with your late father's will, we are pleased to inform you that your inheritance trust becomes active upon your 33rd birthday, October 14th, 2 days ago. Please contact our office immediately. The amount in question totals $10 million U.S. dollars. Transferred in your name. She froze. The world stopped for a second. $10 million? Her breath caught, confusion swirling with disbelief. Her father, whom she'd always known as a simple retired engineer, had left her a fortune she never knew existed. Paula noticed her expression. Good news? Clara folded the letter quickly. I don't even know. Her pulse raced, but not from illness. For the first time she felt something else under her ribs, not pain, not weakness, but the faint stir of power. She looked toward the door again, expecting it to open, expecting Ryan to walk in at last with guilt or concern. But it stayed closed. Hours passed. The clock ticked toward midnight. The food tray went cold. Still, no one came. Clara lay back, staring at the ceiling tiles, the letter clutched tightly in her palm. He didn't even ask, she whispered. Not once. Outside, the hallway lights dimmed for the night. Nurse Paula peeked in, her voice soft. Try to rest, Mrs. Reynolds. Tomorrow's a new day. Clara turned her face toward the window. The city lights twinkled faintly through the blinds, a world moving on without her. Her eyes hardened. Tomorrow, she murmured, everything changes. The heart monitor beeped steadily beside her, each sound sharper than before, like a ticking clock counting down to something she couldn't yet name. By the time the sun rose, the letter from her father would become more than just news, it would become her weapon. Music thundered through the luxury suite. Glasses clinked. Laughter filled the air. Ryan Reynolds, loosened tie and flushed cheeks, leaned back on a velvet sofa as Sophie Grant danced barefoot on the marble floor, holding a champagne bottle like a trophy. The clock read 1:47 a.m. Another toast, she giggled, pouring more champagne into his glass. To surviving another year and keeping our little secret safe. Ryan smirked, tapping his glass against hers. To us. They drank. Then she sank beside him, legs crossed, voice dipping into a whisper. You know, your wife texted you again tonight. You're brave, ignoring her like that. He sighed, rubbing his temples. She's fine, Sophie. She always exaggerates. Probably wants me to rush home because she caught a cold again. Sophie laughed softly, eyes glimmering. Or maybe she's lonely. Poor thing. Ryan frowned at the tone. Don't do that. What? That pitying thing. She's just not the same anymore. Sophie leaned closer. You mean she's not exciting, not glamorous, not like this? She motioned around the sweet crystal chandeliers, gold-trimmed curtains, and untouched wedding cake from the party downstairs. You don't owe her your best years, Ryan. He hesitated. She was there when I had nothing, when my job barely paid for rent. Exactly, Sophie said smoothly. And now you're successful. You've earned better. Her fingers brushed his collar. His breathing slowed, then steadied with indulgent pride. Better, he repeated, tasting the word. Yeah, Sophie smiled, victorious. You're my man now. Once you finalize the divorce, we can stop hiding. Ryan chuckled. Divorce isn't easy, Soph. Not when everything's in both our names. Her lips curved. Then fix that. Shift what matters. You're smart enough to move things around before she figures out what you've built. He paused, suspicion flickering. You sound like you've done this before. She laughed, light and sweet. I just don't like messy endings. You deserve a clean start. Ryan stared at her. You know something funny? I used to think Clara married me for money. Turns out, she's got none of it. Her father left her debts, not assets. I checked years ago. Sophie leaned her head against his shoulder, hiding a small, secret smile. Then, that's one less thing to worry about. He didn't notice the glint in her eyes. He didn't notice her phone lighting up on the table, displaying a text from R. Parker transfers confirmed. Instead, he kissed her forehead, whispering, After tomorrow, I'll talk to my lawyer. We'll make it official. Sophie's smile widened faintly. Good, because I've waited long enough. The night softened. The laughter quieted. Outside, the city glowed beneath the moon, indifferent to the lies being whispered above it. Back at the hospital, Clara stirred in her bed, the envelope still on the nightstand. Nurse Paula adjusted her blanket, whispering, "You've been given a second chance, sweetheart. Don't waste it." Clara's fingers twitched, brushing the letter's edge even in her sleep. In the suite, Ryan's phone buzzed again, another hospital call flashing. Critical update, Clara Reynolds. He silenced it with one thumb, turned the phone face down, and pulled Sophie closer. When morning came, the woman he thought was weak would wake to find her strength, and the man he trusted most would start losing everything he thought he controlled. The door burst open with a sharp knock that startled Clara from her half-sleep. She sat up too fast, pain streaking through her chest. The monitor beside her beeped in protest. "Mrs. Reynolds?" a calm voice called. In stepped a tall, silver-haired man in a charcoal suit, clean-cut, old-fashioned, steady. His presence filled the small hospital room with quiet authority. He held a leather briefcase in one hand and a faint, reassuring smile on his face. "I'm Mr. Hayden," he said gently. "Your father's attorney." Clara blinked, still foggy. "You came in person?" "I did," he replied, pulling a chair closer. "When a man like your father leaves behind something important, it deserves a personal touch." He placed a folder on her lap and opened it with care. "First, I must ask, how are you feeling?" She hesitated. "Alive, I guess. That's something." He nodded. "Your father would have said the same. He admired your strength." Her throat tightened. She hadn't heard anyone mention her father's name in months. "I didn't even know he had anything left to leave." Mr. Hayden smiled knowingly. He wanted it that way. "You see, your father trusted few people after retirement, but he never lost faith in you." He unfolded a set of documents. "Before he passed, he created a trust in your name. It activates on your 33rd birthday, which, I understand, was 2 days ago." Clara frowned, stunned. "You're serious? I don't understand. Why didn't I know?" "Because he didn't want anyone else to know," Hayden said. "Especially your husband." Her heart skipped. "Ryan? Why him?" Hayden leaned forward, voice low but steady. "Your father met Ryan once. Just once. He told me afterward, there's charm in that boy's smile but greed in his eyes. He didn't trust him. So he built protections around you." He handed her a second envelope. Inside were bank certificates, property titles, and a letter her father's handwriting unmistakable. "My dearest Clara, you once said you wanted love. Not money, but love can change. When it does, I want you to have what will never betray you: security. Use this wisely. Stand tall. Be no one's burden." Tears blurred her vision. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew even before I did." Mr. Hayden nodded. "You now control everything. $10 million in liquid assets, plus 2 properties in your name. It's private, legal, and untraceable to your husband's accounts." Clara's breathing slowed as the weight of it sank in. "What am I supposed to do with that?" Hayden's eyes softened. "Whatever you decide, but one piece of advice: don't announce it yet. Watch first. People reveal who they are when they think you have nothing." Clara's gaze drifted toward the window, where the morning sun was breaking through the clouds. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar: control. She turned back to Hayden. "Thank you for everything." He rose, adjusting his cufflinks. "Your father prepared for the day you'd need strength more than sympathy." Clara smiled faintly through tears. "He always believed I'd wake up stronger." Mr. Hayden paused at the door, glancing back. "Then wake up fully, Mrs. Reynolds, because something tells me your husband's about to make his next move." She didn't know it yet, but the next voice she'd hear from Ryan wouldn't be one of concern. It would be the voice of a man already planning her replacement. The vibration of the phone cut through the quiet hospital room like a blade. Clara startled, heart hammering, expecting it to be her husband at last. She grabbed the phone from the bedside table, her fingers trembling slightly. Ryan Reynolds flashed across the screen. For a second, relief flooded her face. But when she answered, all she heard was laughter. High-pitched, careless, distant. Then Ryan's voice slurred, amused. Yeah, I'll be there, babe. Don't worry, Sophie. You're the only woman who gets my nights now. The sound of glasses clinking, a woman's giggle, and then he forgot to hang up. Clara froze. Her heart dropped into her stomach as the seconds stretched into minutes. She could hear them laughing, teasing, whispering secrets. Sophie's voice purred through the speaker. She's probably asleep already. Poor thing. Still thinks you care. Ryan chuckled. She's fine. She'll survive. She always does. She's tough in all the boring ways. The words hit harder than her collapse ever had. Her throat went dry. Her trembling hand lowered the phone slowly to her lap. Nurse Paula peeked in, noticing the color drain from Clara's face. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Clara forced a faint smile. "Just tired. I need a moment." When the nurse left, she pressed the phone to her chest, tears threatening but refusing to fall. Her body felt weak, but her mind began to stir with something colder clarity. She scrolled through the call log. 10 missed calls to Ryan. None returned. The voicemail from Lena still sat unanswered. And now this. His voice. His laughter. Sophie. Clara wiped her tears and opened her contacts. She hesitated for a moment before typing a message to Lena, her co-worker, the only one who had been there when she collapsed. "Clara, can you help me with something?" "Lena, anything." "What's wrong?" "Clara, follow Ryan tonight. Don't ask questions yet." There was a pause. Then Lena replied, "Lena, consider it done." Clara set the phone down, exhaling shakily. The room felt smaller, but inside her, something began to expand, a quiet, heavy determination. Her father's words from the letter echoed in her mind. "Use this wisely. Be no one's burden." She looked toward the window. The city lights shimmered below, alive and indifferent. Somewhere in those lights, her husband was celebrating, while she lay in a hospital bed he never bothered to visit. The IV drip clicked rhythmically beside her. Each drop felt like a countdown. She whispered to herself, "You celebrated while I almost died. Fine. But when I rise, I'll make sure you remember what you left behind." Her phone buzzed again this time, a message from Lena. "Lena, he's at the Skyview Club. With her. I'll send proof." A photo followed. Ryan and Sophie on the balcony of an upscale rooftop lounge, champagne glasses raised, his hand resting on her waist. Clara stared at it until her breath steadied. Then, without a single tear, she locked her phone and whispered, "It's over." But her reflection in the dark window whispered something back, a single word that burned softly behind her eyes. "Not yet." That night, as the proof of betrayal burned in her palm, Clara didn't realize she was already laying the first brick of a plan that would turn her pain into power. The message came at dawn. Clara's phone buzzed against the hospital tray, jolting her awake. Her body still ached, but her mind was razor sharp now, no longer fragile, no longer blind. She reached for the phone with steady fingers. It was from Lena, her loyal coworker. "I got what you asked for. Sending now." Seconds later, the photos arrived. The first one hit her like a bullet. Ryan, her husband, leaning against a glass balcony, his arm wrapped around Sophie Grant. Another photo. Sophie feeding him cake, her fingers brushing his lips, his eyes soft with affection, the same look he hadn't given Clara in years. The last one, a champagne bottle mid-pop, both of them laughing, careless, glowing. Clara's breath caught. She scrolled again, forcing herself to look at every image, every betrayal captured in perfect clarity. There was no misunderstanding this time, no excuses. The sunlight cut through the blinds, striking the photos on her screen like a cruel spotlight. She stared until her eyes blurred. Then she took a deep, trembling breath and whispered, "Thank you, Lena." Lena replied instantly. "I didn't want to believe it either. But he didn't even try to hide. He was bragging about you. Said you were too weak to notice." Clara's stomach twisted, but she didn't cry. The tears had burned themselves out days ago. Now only resolve remained. She typed back slowly, "Keep everything. Don't delete a thing. I'll need it later." She ended the chat, leaned back on her pillow, and closed her eyes. For the first time, her mind didn't drift toward Ryan. It drifted toward herself. The woman she'd once been, kind, patient, forgiving to a fault. The woman who had begged for scraps of affection. The woman who nearly died waiting for him to care. That woman was gone. She sat up, pulling the small envelope from her bedside drawer, the one Mr. Hayden had left, the inheritance letter, the bank documents, the titles, her father's words, "Be no one's burden." It all felt like divine timing now, a secret plan unfolding at the moment she needed it most. Her eyes flicked toward the window. Outside, the city was waking up, people rushing to work, buses honking, life moving forward. And she realized something powerful. Ryan had moved on without her, but she could move forward without him. The phone buzzed again, Lena calling this time. Clara answered softly. "Did you follow them home?" "Yes," Lena said. He dropped her off at her apartment, stayed for almost an hour, then left smiling. Clara exhaled slowly. "Good. Keep the photos safe. We'll use them soon." Lena hesitated. "Clara, what are you planning?" A faint smile touched Clara's lips. Something he'll never see coming. The camera on her phone caught her reflection in the dark screen. Tired eyes. Yes, but sharper now. Alive again. She turned her wedding ring slowly on her finger, the gold glinting faintly in the morning light. Then she slid it off and placed it beside her phone, staring at it like it was a grave marker. "Goodbye, Ryan," she murmured. "You just buried what could have saved you." The monitor beside her beeped softly, steady and rhythmic like the calm before a storm. Before the day ended, Clara would take her first quiet step out of that hospital, and the world would soon learn that the woman Ryan abandoned was no longer the same one he left behind. The front door clicked shut behind her with a sound too sharp for a cry's. Home that once felt warm. Clara stood in the doorway, staring into the silence of the house she had built with her own hands. The air felt colder now, emptier, like even the walls had learned to keep secrets. Her footsteps echoed across the marble floor. The scent of Ryan's cologne still lingered faintly, mixed with another, perfume sweet, floral, unfamiliar. Sophie's. Every trace of it burned her chest like poison. Clara set her hospital discharge papers on the counter. The doctor's warning still echoed in her mind. "You need rest, Mrs. Reynolds. No stress." She almost laughed at that. Rest? How do you rest when your heart's been dissected piece by piece? She walked through the living room slowly. Everything was neat, too neat. The sofa cushions were rearranged, the wine glasses washed, the curtains drawn. Someone had been here while she lay in a hospital bed fighting for her life. Her fingers brushed over a lipstick-stained glass left half hidden behind a vase. Pale pink. Sophie's shade. The proof glared at her like an open wound. She placed it down gently, whispering, "You really didn't even try to hide." Her eyes caught a small, framed photo on the console, her and Ryan, on their wedding day. She picked it up, tracing the edges of their smiles. Back then, she had believed in forever. Now, she could barely recognize the woman in white. Her chest tightened. For a moment, the old Clara surfaced, the one who still wanted to believe people could change. But that weakness flickered out as quickly as it came. She walked to the bedroom and opened the drawer where Ryan kept his files. Inside, neatly stacked, were expense reports and receipts, dinners, hotel bookings, jewelry. None of them hers. Her breath hitched. Not from pain, but from realization. He wasn't careless. He was confident, because he thought she would never look. The woman who once trusted blindly now read every line with surgical precision. Names, dates, credit card slips, all forming a story she could no longer deny. She sat on the edge of the bed, her body trembling, but not from weakness anymore. The tremble of awakening, the tremble of quiet rage. Her mind drifted back to Mr. Hayden's words. "People reveal who they are when they think you have nothing." Ryan thought she was helpless. He thought she'd crumble. But what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that she had 10 million reasons not to fall apart. She exhaled slowly and took her father's letter from her bag. The words steadied her heart. Stand tall. Be no one's burden. That night, she didn't cry. She didn't break. She simply gathered every document, every piece of proof, and locked them in a folder marked Truth. Then she walked to the mirror. Her reflection looked different now, haunted, yes, but sharper. Her lips curved into something small, deliberate, the kind of smile that comes right before a storm breaks. She whispered to her reflection, "Tomorrow I stop surviving. Tomorrow I start fighting." The bedside clock ticked past midnight. In the distance, thunder rumbled faintly, rolling across the city. And as the first drops of rain tapped her window that night, Clara didn't know she was hours away from facing the man who still believed she was too broken to stand. The elevator doors slid open with a metallic hiss. Clara stepped out, her heels echoing sharply across the polished marble floor of Hayden & Co. Legal Associates. The building smelled of old books, ink, and quiet power. She was dressed differently now, no more soft pastels or tired hospital gowns. Today, she wore a fitted navy suit and her father's silver bracelet. Her movements were calm, but her eyes held something new, calculated purpose. Mr. Hayden rose from behind his mahogany desk the moment she entered. "Mrs. Reynolds," he greeted with a nod. "I was expecting your call, but not this soon." Clara gave a small smile. "I've had enough waiting for a lifetime." He gestured for her to sit. "Then I assume this isn't a social visit." She handed him the folder she had prepared the night before. Inside were documents, screenshots, and printed photos, Lena's proof of Ryan's affair. The ring-shaped mark still faintly bruised her finger, where she used to wear her wedding band. Mr. Hayden flipped through the contents silently, his expression unreadable. "I see," he murmured finally. "So the husband you trusted has turned your marriage into an investment." Clara leaned back, her tone measured. "He used my stability to fund his ambition, and now he's funding his mistress with it." "Mr." Hayden's eyes narrowed slightly. "And you want revenge?" Clara shook her head slowly. "No, I want control." That answer made him smile faintly, the kind of smile a man gives when he sees his late client's spirit alive in the daughter sitting before him. "Then you'll need to move carefully. If he believes you're still weak, that works to your advantage." "I want my inheritance moved," Clara said firmly, "into a new foundation. Quietly. Something he can't touch or trace." He raised a brow. "Under your married name or maiden?" Her pause was deliberate. "Carter," she said softly, her father's name. "It's time I use it again." Mr. Hayden nodded approvingly. "Very well. We'll set up a private entity under the Carter Trust. As of tomorrow, every cent will be in your sole control. He won't even know it exists." Clara exhaled, a small weight lifting. "Good, because he's about to learn that the woman he left behind is not the one he married." Mr. Hayden studied her quietly. "What will you do next?" She smiled faintly, a mix of pain and quiet defiance. "Let him think he's winning a little longer. People destroy themselves when they think they're untouchable." He chuckled softly. "Your father once said the same thing about patience being sharper than anger." Clara rose to her feet. "Then maybe I inherited more than his money." As she turned to leave, Mr. Hayden's voice followed her. "One warning, Mrs. Reynolds, men like your husband don't surrender easily. When cornered, they fight dirty." She paused at the doorway, glancing back with steady eyes. "Then, it's a good thing I stopped playing clean." The wind outside howled softly against the glass as she walked out of the office. The city skyline stretched before her, cold, glittering, alive. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A new message from Ryan. "Dinner tonight. Mom wants to see you. Don't embarrass me." Clara stared at it for a long moment, her lips curling into a quiet, knowing smile. What Ryan thought would be a harmless family dinner would soon become the table where his lies finally began to unravel. The dining room buzzed with forced laughter and clinking silverware. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead, casting a golden sheen on polished cutlery and polished lies. At the head of the long oak table sat Margaret Reynolds, Ryan's mother, an elegant woman with sharp eyes and sharper opinions. Ryan sat beside her, wearing his practiced smile, pretending nothing in his world was cracking, and across from him, sitting perfectly straight, calm, unreadable, was Clara. It was the first time they'd been in the same room since her collapse. Margaret broke the silence first. "Clara, dear, you've lost so much weight. You really must take better care of yourself. A wife's duty is to look presentable, even in hard times." Clara smiled faintly, her voice soft but steady. "I'm learning what real strength looks like, Mother Reynolds. It doesn't always wear makeup." The older woman's lips twitched in disapproval. Ryan chuckled awkwardly. "Let's not turn dinner into a lecture, okay? Mom just worries." Clara glanced at him, her tone cool. "That's generous. Someone in this family should." He stiffened. "What's that supposed to mean?" But before he could press, a waiter entered with two new guests. One of them froze Ryan mid-breath. Sophie Grant. Dressed flawlessly in cream silk, she carried a small gift bag and a nervous smile. Margaret beamed. Ah, Sophie! Finally someone with manners. Ryan invited you. How kind of you to join us. Clara's fork paused midair. She turned slowly toward her husband. You invited her? Ryan's throat worked. She's a colleague. It's just dinner. Sophie's voice trembled slightly. I didn't know you'd be here, Clara. I thought this was a business gathering. Clara's expression didn't change. You thought wrong. Margaret clapped her hands once, forcing a laugh. Now, let's not be dramatic. Ryan can have friends, can he? Clara set down her glass, eyes locking on Ryan's. Of course. As long as those friends don't sit in hotel rooms pretending to celebrate promotions while their wives fight for their lives in a hospital bed. The entire room went silent. The only sound was the faint hum of the chandelier. Ryan's jaw tightened. You're making a scene, Clara. Am I? Her tone was ice. Or am I just done pretending? She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Neat, crisp, and deliberate. She placed it in front of him. Ryan frowned. What's this? Something you've been looking for, she said. Proof. Inside were the printed photos Lena had sent the rooftop party, the champagne, Sophie's hand on his chest. Sophie went pale. Margaret's fork clattered against her plate. Clara didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. You left me to die, Ryan. While you drank to your future with her. Ryan shot to his feet, face flushed. You had someone spy on me? Clara met his rage with calm. No, I had someone protect me. From you. The silence that followed was colder than any shout. Finally she stood, adjusting her blazer. Dinner's over. She walked past them all, her perfume lingering like defiance. Ryan called after her, his voice cracking. You think you can just walk away from me? She didn't turn around. I already did. You just didn't notice. Margaret slumped in her chair, whispering, What have you done, Ryan? Clara pushed through the dining room doors into the night air, her heart steady, her mind clear. The sound of Ryan's world collapsing behind her was the sweetest silence she'd ever heard. By morning, the story of that dinner would spread beyond those walls, and Clara's quiet exit would set the stage for a public reckoning no one could stop. The flash of cameras exploded across the ballroom like lightning. Dozens of reporters, investors, and executives filled the grand hall of the Monarch Hotel for the annual charity gala. Banners glimmered above the stage. Reynolds Foundation empowering women in business. Ryan Reynolds stood proudly at the podium, his voice smooth, confident, and fake. My wife and I have always believed in giving back to the women who build the backbone of our communities. The audience applauded politely. Cameras clicked. But the irony in his words didn't go unnoticed, not by the one person whose silence was louder than applause. At the back of the room, Clara stood tall, draped in an elegant black gown that shimmered under the chandeliers. Her poise was calm, her eyes steady. The same woman he once called weak now looked untouchable. Next to her stood Mr. Hayden, her father's attorney, clipboard in hand, lips pressed in quiet satisfaction. Ryan scanned the crowd and froze the moment he saw her. His voice caught, just for a second. And tonight, he continued, recovering quickly, we dedicate this fund to my beautiful wife, Clara Reynolds, who inspires everything I do. The crowd turned as one, clapping toward her. Clara's smile was faint but unreadable. She began walking slowly to the stage, every step deliberate, echoing against the marble floor like the ticking of fate. When she reached him, Ryan extended his hand. She ignored it, taking the microphone instead. Thank you, everyone. I'm touched by the love in this room. Her tone was calm, almost too calm. The audience leaned in, sensing something brewing. She continued, but I must correct something my husband said. The foundation, she paused, letting the silence tighten, isn't his idea, or ours. It's mine. A ripple of whispers spread. Ryan's jaw clenched. Clara, he hissed under his breath. What are you doing? She faced the crowd, her smile widening just slightly. This foundation was created under my maiden name, Carter, in honor of my late father, who believed in truth, not pretense. The reporters' pens flew. Cameras flashed faster. Ryan stepped forward, trying to maintain control. Sweetheart, maybe we should. Clara raised a hand, silencing him. And to those who wonder why I changed the name, her eyes met his directly. It's because the man beside me no longer represents anything worth standing beside. Gasps erupted through the hall. Sophie, standing near the bar in a sequin dress, froze mid-sip. Her face drained of color as Clara reached into her clutch and held up an envelope. Since my husband loves publicity, I thought the press might enjoy these. She handed the documents to a journalist in the front row. Photos, hotel receipts, and financial records, all tied to Ryan's secret affairs and embezzlement from the very foundation he was pretending to lead. The crowd's murmur turned into chaos. Cameras surged forward. Ryan's voice cracked. "You can't do this!" Clara met his panic with calm ice. "I already have." He reached for her wrist, but Mr. Hayden stepped forward, placing a protective hand between them. "Mr. Reynolds," the lawyer said coolly, "you should prepare for what comes next. Your wife owns everything in this room legally." Ryan's face went pale. Sophie turned away, trembling. Clara gave a final look around the hall, her voice soft but powerful. "To every woman who's been told she's too weak to stand alone, this is for you." The audience erupted into applause. Reporters swarmed. Ryan stumbled back, the flash of cameras burning his face. Clara turned, walking toward the exit, her head high as whispers followed her name. Each step echoed like thunder across the marble floor. But as the cameras captured Ryan's downfall, Clara didn't yet know his next move would come not from pride, but desperation. The rain came down in sheets, hammering against the windshield as if the sky itself wanted to drown the night. Ryan Reynolds slammed his car door shut and stumbled toward the mansion's front steps, soaked and shivering. His designer suit clung to his skin, his tie hanging loose like a noose. His phone buzzed nonstop, missed calls, headlines, humiliation. Every news outlet was running the story. Businessman Ryan Reynolds exposed at charity gala, wife reveals embezzlement and affair. The camera flash from the gala replayed in his mind, each one a stab to the chest. He kicked open the front door, shouting, "Clara!" His voice echoed through the dark, empty house. No response. No sound except the patter of rain dripping from his shoes onto the marble floor. He slammed his briefcase down, pacing like a caged animal. "You think you can humiliate me, Clara?" His voice cracked. "You think you can destroy me?" From the living room table, her wedding ring gleamed faintly beneath the lamplight, cold, deliberate. Next to it was a single envelope with his name written in her neat handwriting. He tore it open with shaking hands. Inside were printed screenshots, bank transactions, board approvals, his secret transfers to Sophie's account. At the bottom, one handwritten line in blue ink. "I warned you. This was never revenge, it was consequence." His knees nearly buckled. He grabbed the edge of the table, staring at the words until they blurred. The silence around him grew heavier, pressing on his chest until he could barely breathe. His phone buzzed again, this time from Sophie. He answered with a growl. "Where are you?" Her voice came through, sharp and panicked. "Ryan, they froze the accounts. Everything's gone. The firm is investigating. Mr. Hayden called the auditors himself." "What?" He clutched the phone tighter. No, that's impossible. I can't be involved in this," she cried. "Do you understand what this means? My career, my reputation? Sophie, don't you dare hang up." But the line went dead. Ryan hurled the phone across the room, smashing it against the wall. His reflection stared back at him from the glass cabinet, disheveled, desperate, ruined. He sank to his knees, hands tangled in his hair. For the first time, he felt what Clara must have felt lying alone in that hospital bed abandoned. Except now, no one was coming for him. A flash of lightning illuminated the dining table. The seat where Clara used to sit was empty, but the faint outline of her glass was still there. He stared at it, chest heaving. "She planned this," he whispered. "Every step." His thoughts twisted between rage and regret. He reached for a decanter, poured himself a drink, and downed it in one gulp. The burn didn't calm him, it only sharpened his fury. He slammed the glass down. She thinks this is over. But his eyes drifted to the window, where her car was no longer parked. She was gone free, and he was drowning in his own destruction. Then headlights flared across the driveway, bright, blinding. A black sedan rolled to a stop outside. Two men stepped out, wearing dark suits. Ryan frowned. "Who the hell?" A knock thundered on the door. "Mr. Reynolds?" one of the men called. We're here on behalf of the District Financial Crimes Unit. Ryan's heart stopped. He turned toward the door, as the second man said coldly, "You'll need to come with us." The rain roared louder, swallowing the sound of his denial. The courthouse steps were crowded with flashing cameras and murmuring reporters. A cold wind cut through the morning air, tugging at Clara Carter's black coat as she exited the marble building. She didn't flinch at the noise, the questions, or the chaos. She'd lived through louder storms. Behind her, officers guided Ryan Reynolds in handcuffs toward a waiting patrol car. His once-tailored suit was wrinkled, his face pale, his arrogance stripped bare. He shouted over the noise, desperate and broken. "Clara, please, you can't let them do this. I'm your husband." She turned slowly, eyes calm, voice even. "You stopped being my husband the day you left me to die." Reporters gasped. Cameras snapped wildly. Ryan tried to reach for her, but the officers pulled him back. "I loved you," he shouted, his voice cracking. "I made mistakes, please." Clara stepped closer, her heels steady on the stone steps. "No, Ryan, you made choices." He froze. The silence that followed was heavier than any verdict. The officers led him into the car, his reflection warping in the rain-streaked window before the door slammed shut. The vehicle pulled away, disappearing down the wet street. Clara didn't watch it leave. She turned toward the flashing lights and murmured, "Justice doesn't erase pain, but it gives it purpose." Beside her, Mr. Hayden approached, carrying a slim folder. "It's done," he said. "The assets are legally restored to you. Every cent, every property. You're free, Mrs. Carter." Clara smiled faintly. "Just Clara now." Hayden nodded approvingly. "Your father would be proud." She looked up at the courthouse dome, rain softening her expression. "He always wanted me to build something that outlasts suffering." He handed her an envelope. "Then build it." Later that afternoon, the scene shifted to a sunlit plaza filled with laughter and new beginnings. Children ran across the freshly cut grass beneath a sign that read, "The Carter Foundation, Hope for Women Rebuilding." Clara stood before the crowd, her voice clear and warm as she spoke into the microphone. "This foundation isn't about revenge," she said. "It's about rebirth, about reminding every woman that being broken once doesn't mean staying broken forever." Applause rippled through the audience. Among them were single mothers, survivors, young professionals, faces of strength she had vowed to protect. She spotted Lena, her loyal friend, clapping proudly from the front row. Their eyes met, and a shared understanding passed between them: gratitude, survival, and sisterhood. When the ceremony ended, Clara walked to the fountain at the center of the plaza. The rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, scattering gold across the water's surface. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her wedding ring, the last piece of the life that nearly killed her. For a long moment, she held it in her palm, the metal cool and familiar. Then she dropped it into the fountain. It sank with a soft plink, vanishing beneath the ripples. Clara smiled. For the first time in years, it wasn't forced. It was real. Mr. Hayden's voice carried softly from behind her. "What will you do now?" Clara turned toward the horizon, where the sun dipped low, her hair glowing in the light. "Live," she said simply, "and keep every promise my father couldn't." The camera panned back, the foundation's logo gleaming behind her, the crowd cheering, her figure steady in the golden glow of renewal. But as the scene faded, a black car parked quietly across the street. A man inside lowered the window, just enough to watch her. His face was hidden, but a faint smile curved his lips before the car rolled away.